Hello, everybody, and welcome into another season preview show here at the Hockey Writers YouTube channel. I'm your host, Matthew Zator, and we're up to the Dallas Stars here as we continue previewing the teams up until the regular season starts. I've got Jacob Strozyk here. He doesn't cover the Stars normally, but he's going to step in as he did during the playoffs as well. Welcome, Jacob. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, happy to be back. It's always fun talking about Dallas. It's not a second home, but it's always fun to chat about them.
They are an exciting team and they're an elite team. Of course,
For sure.
they won the Western Conference last season in the regular season. Didn't go their ultimate goal to the Stanley Cup final, but almost made it there, but very close. Couldn't get by the Edmonton Oilers there, but still a really good team. They have, of course, lost veteran Joel Pavelski, who didn't think he would ever retire, but he seems like he's going to do that. He hasn't officially announced it yet, right? He hasn't announced that.
I believe he did say that he is retiring. Yes. I believe there was a social media post about it. And I believe NHL.com did say it too. So I believe there was an official announcement on it last month. It was like a tentative
Yeah.
discussion about it. It wasn't like a full blown I'm retiring, tour going out with a bang type thing like a lot of other players do. It was more of a like just somber I'm
Yeah.
heading out type thing. But he is definitely like retired. He's gone. He's done.
Yeah. And he was a really good, like one of the key players for the Stars. So we'll see how they go forward without him. But he was the biggest remove subtraction from the team. They didn't really
Yes.
add anyone. They're going to go with basically what they went with last season, minus Pavelski. They have still one of the deepest teams, I think, in the league. So let's jump into their forward group here.
Mhm.
And I mean, like I said, not really anything new here, but they do have guys that are probably going to play full seasons. You got Logan Stankoven, who had a part of the season, and then of course he was really good in the playoffs. Probably one of the better stars in the playoffs. And then you got guys returning like Matt Duchene, who had a really good season after coming in last season. Of course, Wyatt Johnston is the star guy who had a breakout season last year too. What do you think about this forward group going into the season?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, it's more of a run it back with the same crew type of deal. So there's still a lot to be excited about after you have such a good season already. It is tough to lose such a great veteran like Pavelski, but with being able to inject such young talent into the roster immediately with somebody like Stankoven, and with having a young player step up with somebody like Wyatt Johnston, who became that Pavelski replacement
Right.
just like that, and being that type of clutch player that he really is. It's not that you're not going to miss Pavelski, it's that the sting of losing him is going to be severely lessened on a group like this because of how deep they are and what they are able to accomplish. So you still have your Rupa Hintz up top. You still have your Jason Robertson up top. You still have Matt Duchene who re-signed or who signed an extension. You still have Tyler Sagan. You still have Mason Marchment. You still have Dadonov. You still have Jamie Benn. So there's still a lot of great veteran presence going on up there. So you're not really losing a whole lot in this group as a whole. You're just kind of filling in gaps. So I'm not really seeing a lot of major, holes and weaknesses that you can kind of poke at in this type
Mhm.
of a forward group, because you have the balances in your two-way play, in your physical play, and in your skill play, kind of in the all-around game. So just as a grouping, the Stars have a great group. It's
Mhm. Yeah.
it's that's the only real way to play. It's like a hive mind almost the way
Yeah.
that they play. It's weird the way that Pierre DeBoer has them just rolling around the ice. It's not about the superstar. They have superstars, but it's not about just making that one player great. It's about making the team great as a whole and functioning as that one unit.
I agree. I mean, they do have a very deep, like when you put a guy, you can have a guy like Dadonov on your fourth line. That's a pretty good group, right? Because he can play in their top six. I
Mhm.
mean, shown he can. And then you got a guy like Jamie Benn on your third line. I mean, it's and he can jump in the top six, of course, too. And then Maverick Bourque, like you mentioned, he's
Yep.
coming in this season, probably gonna play a full season now. I could potentially pair with Stankoven and be a really good kid line with a veteran, Jamie Benn, maybe. And they did add Colin Blackwell. I mean, he's more of a fourth line guy. I mean, he's shown in the past he can add a bit of offense. He's not a big scorer, but I mean, that's the only addition really to the forward group at all. All right, moving to the defense, which this group did see some additions. They
Yep.
also got rid of Ryan Suter, who of course went elsewhere and signed with the St. Louis Blues. But they added Brendan Smith, Matt Dumba, Ilya Lyubushkin. So there's three guys, and they're still led, of course, by Miro Heiskanen and Thomas Harley, who had a breakout season last season. So what do you think about this defense group, which I mean is a pretty different look going into this season?
Yeah, it hits. It hurts a little bit having to lose Tanev, I think, as well.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if they were going to be able to retain him, having, um, you know, given up what they did, and him going to, I believe it was Toronto.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, they still were able to, find a decent replacement, just for him as a whole. They were able to get, like you said, they got Dumba, they got Lyubushkin, who I think both, kind of fill those holes in a decent way. But up top, you have your two aces in the hole. You have Heiskanen, you have Harley. Harley took a huge, huge step forward this season, and that is really where the Stars got so much better on the defensive end, and that's going to make a massive difference for them. So whether they decide to keep the two of them together up on the top pairing, or if they decide to split them and use them as kind of a 1-2 for their first and second pairings, and maybe distribute their offensive defensive abilities that way, and kind of let them kind of roll in separate directions, and split the offense. That's really just a matter of however Peter DeBoer wants to deploy them as a whole. But you can do it either way, and it'll honestly still work. So I like the defensive group. I think the only kind of major weakness sitting back there for me is maybe Dumba, just
Mm.
for his bit of a decline over recent years. Back when he was playing in Minnesota, he was really one of their better defensemen. He was a bigger name
Mm.
for them back in that day, and he was known for being a good, two-way offensive leaning defenseman with some physicality to him. But in recent years, he's just kind of dipped off. But now I think this is a good chance for him to remake a name for
Mm.
himself. He's on a good team. He's going to get a lot of exposure. He's going to get a good amount of ice time. So I think this is a good opportunity for him to step up. And I think this is a good opportunity to be in a good defensive system
Mm.
and actually get some good chances to be that type of a defenseman again. So it's a bit of a weak point potentially, with a chance to become
Mm.
stronger.
Yeah, I think Dumbo is, yeah, he was one of the top defensemen in the league for a bit there with Minnesota, and then of course, yeah, like I said, dropped off a bit, and then of course then he left and got he's bounced around a little bit since he's got a couple teams, but yeah, he is still a good defenseman. He's not gonna have to play a
Mhm.
ton on this team, but. And then Brendan Smith, I think he's an underrated guy to
Mhm.
be added because he can play forward as well. I mean that's something that probably won't have to do, but it's good to have that. I mean they could go and put him on the fourth line maybe, but I
Yeah.
think he's going to be a good versatile guy to be in and out of the lineup potentially, because they still have Niels Lundqvist. He re-signed. I don't know where he's going to fit in the on this group? Where do you see him? He only signed, he's on a
The
1 year
problem the
extension.
problem with Lundqvist is they underutilize him a lot. Even in the playoffs, he didn't see a lot of ice time. It was under 10 minutes for most
Yeah.
of just about every single game that they had him in. So it's almost like they just phased him out of the lineup for just about every opportunity they could. So I don't see him as a long-term fit into it. He's more of a stopgap seventh
Mhm.
defenseman in this type of a thing. He's just fill in when there's an injury, go in when maybe there's a need for more offense, or maybe there's a need for veteran rest type thing. Stick him in there when there's an opportunity or a random chance. But I don't see him as a mainstay in the lineup by any means. They paid a decent price for him when they spent a
Yeah.
first round pick to get him, but you know, I just for some reason don't see them using him as a long-term solution for their blue line, and it's tough, but it's just the reality based off of how they've been sticking him out there on the ice. His ice
Mhm.
time just doesn't equate to being a long-term defenseman for them.
Mhm. I was a little surprised they actually re-signed him too, because 1 year
Same.
deal, right? And maybe they think he can maybe push his way in, who knows? And then they added, of course, all these other guys to kind of fill his role, maybe. But yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see what happens with him. All right, moving to the goaltending, which didn't see any change in the starter. Jake Oettinger returns, and then you've got Casey DeSmith backing him up this time. What do you think about this tandem going in? I mean, DeSmith, I mean, he's probably the same as Wedgwood going out, but where do you see the goaltending going into this season?
I mean, don't count Wedgwood out in any way, shape, or form. I'll make the argument that even at some points, Wedgwood outperformed Ottinger in a bunch of points last season. So, for what he was or for what he is in a backup goaltender, he was stellar. So, can DeSmith do those types of things? Yeah, sure. He definitely has the capacity for it. So, I think he's a solid, backup goaltender signing, but he's not going to overtake Ottinger as the
Mm.
starter by any means. So, as far as is he threatening his job? No. But still, Ottinger has to be better. That's the long and short of it. He wasn't bad by any means, but he wasn't spectacular. He wasn't, game seven playoff
Yeah,
Jake Ottinger from the 2023 playoffs that everybody was like, wow, this kid's the next, Marty Brodeur or whatever. I
yeah.
forget the comparison that everybody was throwing out at the time, but it was something ridiculous because he was just stopping literally everything, and it was just absolutely insane to watch. But then it was just dip after dip
Mm.
after dip, and it was just average numbers across the board. He just didn't look like himself.
Mm.
So he's unequivocally the starter, but he can still do better.
Yeah.
And especially if the defense improves, that's only going to help him in the long run. So I like the goaltending tandem. I think it's a safe grouping, and I think it's a strong tandem as well.
Yeah, I mean, DeSmith had a really good season with the Canucks, backing up Demko, and then he came into the playoffs. Of course, got hurt. Had a good game, but the thing he is a backup. I mean, that's he's probably a
Yeah.
really solid backup, but you don't want him playing tons of games if that comes with it. But Andre, I do agree that it needs to be better. He wasn't the same as before. It's just he has a great team in front of him, and I think that's what's helped him in where he struggled a bit.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's still a good tandem. I agree too. All right, looking at the Central Division, of course, they won the division last season. Do you still see them at the top, or is a team like the Nashville Predators, of course, the Colorado Avalanche is always going to be there? Where do you see the Stars in the Central?
Yeah, they're still definitely one of the top teams. Are they number one? Maybe. I think it's just kind of a slugfest between them and Colorado. And it's really just going to be, who puts on more armor and decides
Yeah.
to, bash down the other guy's shield before they, whack the other one on top of the head with a huge
Yeah.
hammer by the end of the night. So that's really all it's going to be between the two of them as far as the Central goes, because it's heavy hitters that are going on in that division. It's not like the Atlantic where it's heavy hitters all around. It's not like the Metro where it's, again, heavy hitters pretty much all around. The West has heavy hitters up top and
Mhm.
then, kind of bottom feeders and then heavy hitters up top and bottom feeders.
Yeah.
So it's a bit of a tougher dichotomy in that type of situation. And the Stars are very clearly one of those top contending teams. So I don't see them bottoming out in any way, shape, or
Mhm.
form. They're definitely going to be one of the top two. If they struggle, they might drop to third in their
Mhm.
division. If somebody really tries to overtake them, Nashville is definitely going to make a push with how many additions that they've made. So they could definitely get challenged for it, since the Stars kind of stayed put. It's really just a matter of how much are they going to get beaten over the head by
Yeah.
Colorado. And I think that's really just the long and short of it on that.
Agreed. And also the Winnipeg Jets. I mean, no, not sure. They didn't really add anything in the offseason either. I mean, they don't really have a legit second line center. So I don't know how what's going to happen with the Jets. They were one of the heavy hitters last season too. We'll see how they kind of go in this season. Yeah,
That's why I kind
it's
of stick the Jets in that like
yeah,
3-4 spot. Like it's 1, 2, 3, 4. They're one of the top teams, but I'm not sure if they're quite, in that top two.
yeah,
They could challenge for three, maybe dip up into two if, Hellebuck decides to be God
yeah.
level Hellebuck. So it's you can make the argument depending on the scenario. It's just it's a lot of ifs.
Yeah, it's true. Like you said, the Predators, who knows what's going to happen with them too, with the two big guys they added. Yeah, it'll be interesting. This division's going to be interesting to watch for sure. All right, let's go to our quick fire round and do all these quick questions here. Let's start with biggest storyline going into this season.
I feel like it's the same storyline every single year, and it's can you make it to the finals?
Yeah.
It really is. Can you make it past round three? Can Peter DeBoer finally get this team over the hump and into the Stanley Cup Finals? Finally, and playing for a Stanley Cup because they're so close. They
Yeah.
get so close so many times, and they're right there. They fight so hard and for so long, and they miss it by that much.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's the same storyline, and it's going to be that again. It's because they're running it back. They're
Yeah.
just running it back with the same crew, with the same plan, and the same coach and the same crew. It's all the same, deja vu. So it's going to be the same story, all in
Yeah.
all.
I agreed. And the thing is they do have the team to do it. It's just can they get by all these other teams that seem to put it together and they can't get by them. That's what happened with the Oilers. They go against this team that seemed like they were making it to the final, and yeah, Stars couldn't match it. So yeah, that I think that's the biggest one for sure. All right, let's talk about two breakout or one or two breakout stars for the Stars.
I feel like it might be cliche, but to me, it's got to be Logan Stankoven. He's the young star that popped into the scene late season, and he's poised to be that, burst into the scene at the start of the year.
Mm.
So I think he's ready to break out. I think he's ready to step up. I think he's ready to be a big player. Last season was Johnston, and now the next young player to step up and be in those shoes is Stankoven. So I think just logically, progression wise, the way that all these players kind of jump in, because there's nobody really else to jump into a breakout season
Mhm.
status otherwise, but he is. So I think he's the logical choice, and I think he's also the obvious choice.
Mhm. He's going to have a good chance at the Calder too, I think, or be in the conversation for sure. There's a lot of guys, of course, but yeah, well, everyone knows watch Prospect Corner. I love Logan Stankoven, so I'm going to be watching him all season to see what he
Ride or
can.
die for it.
Yeah. All right, someone that needs to bounce back from last season.
Uh, Bounce back. I kind of talked about it a little bit already, and it's going to be Oettinger. I think can do more. I think he can be better than what he was. We're not talking he needs to be sitting at a 2.05 goals against, Dominic Hasek level numbers constantly. But, sitting at like a 2.4
Mhm.
goals against with maybe like a 920-ish save percentage, I think is something that he can accomplish, and it'll be considered a bounce back season for a
Mhm.
goaltender of his caliber. Those are some very good numbers in today's NHL, and something that he can definitely reach. It's not easy,
Mhm.
but it's something that he absolutely can do, and numbers that with a defense and team that's in front of him is very, very
Mhm.
possible.
I'll throw in Mason Marchment as another guy that needs to, because he had an okay season, but he was really good
Yeah.
before he joined the Stars, and he didn't really live up to that, I don't think, in
No.
his first season at all. So he needs to definitely bounce back. All right, someone or something that could be an X factor this season for the Stars.
Uh, Again, I'm gonna go with the low hanging fruit, but I love talking about him because he's one of my favorite players in the NHL, and it's Wyatt, the absolute clutch goal scoring master Johnston.
Yeah.
I love watching him play, and I can't wait to see what he does with a playoff defeat under his belt
Hmm.
and seeing what that motivation does to somebody like him. So seeing him carry that team on his back and seeing him drive that into this season and what it'll do for someone like him. So I think that'll make him a driving force for this team this season and being a huge, huge X factor, uh, where people might not be paying attention to him still for some
Yeah.
reason. I think they should.
I agree. He's probably one of the top players in the league now, and he's only been in the league for what? This is his third season?
Three, I think it's
Yeah,
third season. Yeah,
yeah. Because his first season was really good, and
because the second this was last year was the second. This is when he scored 30.
yeah. So he's not been in the league very long, and he's already one of the top guys. He had 24 goals in his rookie season and 32 last season. So yeah, and he's played all the games. He hasn't missed a game in his NHL career yet. So
He's a madman, and I love watching him play.
only 21 years old, 23rd overall. Yeah, shouldn't have.
Awesome.
That's getting drafted that late. No. All right. Speaking of, let's talk about some rookies or prospects now. I mean, this lineup is pretty stacked right now. I don't see many rookies cracking the lineup, but do you see anyone doing that? I mean, apart Maverick Bork, I don't know if it'd be a surprise if he makes the team. He probably will, but who could be that surprise?
Yeah, you could throw him every fork. He's probably a bit of a shoe-in. Another name you could possibly toss in is the defense is kind of crowded, but you could maybe see him come up as Lion Bishel.
Mhm.
He's another good, defensive prospect, but he's got a lot of good instincts on the back end. He's got, everything that you want in a young defenseman.
Mhm.
So he could easily step up into the Stars defensive system and be a replacement for someone like Dumba
Mhm.
or someone like Labushkin. He can step in and play, you know, 12 to 16 minutes a
Mhm.
night if need be, and it won't be a problem. And I think it would be lateral, if not an upgrade to somebody like Lundqvist,
Mhm.
especially considering how they were using somebody like him. So I don't know if he's an opening lineup type guy, considering where the defense is at, but I would still watch for, you could be surprised. He
Mhm.
still might, crack that lineup,
Yeah, that's a
especially if
good
somebody gets
one.
hurt.
That definitely that could happen. Training camp and preseason is always injuries happening. There's already some coming out for certain different teams. I just saw Lehkonen, Colorado, not going to be able to start the season. So all
Again,
these things happen. So you don't know.
Lekkonen's hurt again. Shocker.
Yeah, right. All right. Prospects that everyone should be watching this season outside of that could make the team.
Well, I already talked about Bischel, so I'll throw another one I had on here at you, and that's Christian Kyrou.
Hmm.
He had a great year down with the Texas Stars. Good offensive defender. Really, I would say underrated speed. I know if you read all the like elite prospect stuff and everything, half of the stuff is on there is about his speed and otherwise.
Hmm.
But if you actually watch some of the game highlights on it, he's got really quick feet and just the way that he gains speed, it's really cool to watch.
Mm.
So it's something that is just really noticeable to me, and the way that he uses that to make plays
Mm.
is something that I think the Stars will be able to have in the future. And I can honestly see him making it into their lineup as early as this season for a call up. I wouldn't be shocked to see them, bring him up for a 3, 4, 5 game stint just to see what he can do, especially if they're in a comfortable position. Or even if there's an injury, I couldn't see any reason why they wouldn't call him up for any, bit of time there. But otherwise, as far as a permanent position, he could easily make the NHL within the next year or two. But he's a fun
Hmm.
player to watch for sure. I would definitely keep an eye on him.
Yeah, I know I did. I can't remember. I'm pretty sure I had him as a prospect that the Canucks should draft in the later rounds. That year, so he is a very exciting defenseman. But
It's a second or a third round
I
pick. I forget.
think, yeah, I think
Third round pick, I think.
he was around there. He was like a mid round. Yeah, he is an interesting guy for sure. Okay, the last couple questions here. Who's going to lead the team in scoring? Now, there are a few candidates. We mentioned him already. I think he's
We
probably
can
going
make
to
arguments, but I'm still. I can make arguments for Wyatt Johnston, but I still think at the end of the day, it's going to be Jason Robertson.
Yeah,
He's still your star player. He's still your best player overall, and he's still your number one goal scorer at the end of the day. I think Johnston will challenge him this year a bit for that. Unless for some reason Robertson is pushing 50 by the end of the
yeah,
season. I don't know if Johnson can push 50, can push 50. I think he'll push 40 this year, if not hit it. But I think he'll definitely push it. But Robertson has the capacity for 50 and he has the capacity for 100 points.
yeah.
So at the end of the day, he's still your best player and he's going to score the most points off from your offense.
What about defense? Is Heiskanen, Harley? Harley had a ton of points last season, although Heiskanen can also put up the points too.
Harley did have a ton of points, but still, you got to go with the safe bet. It's going to be
Yeah.
Heiskanen. He's still your best defenseman overall. He's still your most offensively inclined defenseman overall, and he's still getting the most minutes overall. So
Yeah.
he is going to accumulate those points the easiest out of all of your defensemen. So he's the safe pick. He's the best pick, and I can see him hitting at least the 60-point mark. I can definitely see arguments for the 70-point mark for him at some point. Don't know if he does it this year, but I could definitely see him hitting it.
One thing on Harley, he doesn't have as many assists that he goes. Had 15
Right.
goals last season, but only 32 assists. So
I
needs
wouldn't be
more
shocked to see
assists.
Harley push 20. That
Yeah,
kid can
yeah.
shoot.
He definitely, yeah, and especially when it's such a breakout. I mean, he had only 6 games in the previous season, and then he breaks and plays 79 and scores 15. So we'll see what he
Problem
does.
is Heiskanen averages like 28 minutes a night. That's
Yeah,
the
that's
that's the
true.
only
More
problem.
chances, more chances to get the points. All right, last question: a bold prediction, our hot take for this season for the Stars.
Bold take. I'm gonna say they finally make it to the finals. I'm gonna say that, and I'm gonna make it specific too. I'm gonna say that they actually do it by knocking out the Oilers in the first round,
Oh,
and then they take down the Avalanche as well. So I think they're gonna just exercise both of their demons and then make it to the finals. That's my bold prediction. I think they have it in them, and I think it would be a fun thing to watch.
yeah.
Everyone involved.
For sure. Well, we'll see. I mean, they seem to get stopped at the Western Conference Final, but we'll see what happens this time. But thanks, Jacob, for coming on and talking the Stars going into this season. It should be another good one for them, and we'll see if they can get over the hump. Make sure to check out everything at thehockeywriters.com for whoever writes about the Stars. There are some writers that kind of pop in and out talking about this team, but I'm going to try to write some stuff on Logan Stankoven throughout the season, so look for that. But make sure to check everything else out. All of our season preview shows are on the YouTube channel, so if you're inclined to watch all the previews, you can take a look there and check out everything else on the Substack as well. But until our next preview, we will see you next time.